Hollywood is a city built on light, fame, and illusion. From the street, its mansions look serene, protected by gates, hedges, and silence. But behind those walls, something often remains. Not legends meant to entertain, but traces of lives that ended too suddenly, too violently, or too quietly to ever be resolved. These are not ghost stories told for fun. They are accounts passed down by former owners, caretakers, staff, and late-night visitors who walked into these homes expecting comfort and luxury and felt something watching them instead. Rooms that grow unnaturally cold. Hallways where footsteps echo with no source. Mirrors that seem to remember faces no longer alive. What happens when fame fails to save someone from fear, despair, or betrayal? When a death is officially closed but the truth feels unfinished? Can a place absorb suffering the way walls absorb sound, replaying it long after everyone involved is gone? Tonight, we enter 10 Hollywood properties where tragedy never truly moved out. Homes where renovations changed the layout but not the atmosphere. Where silence feels heavy, memory feels alive, and the past refuses to stay buried. Long after everyone leaves. They are reminders that some stories never truly end. 1. Cielo Drive. The Sharon Tate murder house perched high above Benedict Canyon. The home once known as 10050 Cielo Drive should have been just another Hollywood mansion with sweeping views of Los Angeles. A quiet, elegant property hidden behind gates and trees, it was the kind of place meant to symbolize success and privacy. Instead, it became one of the most infamous addresses in entertainment history. On the 9th of August, 1969, pregnant actress Sharon Tate and 4 others were brutally murdered inside the house by members of the Manson family. Tate was only 26 years old, on the brink of a new phase of her career and preparing to become a mother. The crime shocked the nation and shattered the illusion that Hollywood's wealth could protect anyone from violence. Officially, the case was closed. Emotionally, it never was. After the murders, the atmosphere of the house was said to change completely. Security guards and caretakers later described hearing muffled screams, sobbing, and whispers that seemed to come from inside the walls. Several reported sudden cold spots with no logical explanation and an overwhelming sense of dread that made them avoid certain rooms after dark. One longtime caretaker claimed to see the figure of a pregnant woman in a nightgown, standing silently near the windows, disappearing when approached. In 1994, the original mansion was demolished. The address was changed. A new house was built, as if erasing the structure could erase the memory. Yet residents of the rebuilt property continued to report strange sounds, shifting temperatures, and the persistent feeling of being watched. If a place witnesses a life cut short before its story is finished, does it ever truly let go? Or does the land itself remember long after Hollywood has tried to move on? 2. The La Bianca House, Los Feliz. Just one night after the murders at Cielo Drive, the violence continued. On the 10th of August 1969, the Manson family entered a modest home at 3301 Waverly Drive in Los Feliz. Inside, grocery store executive Leno LaBianca and his wife Rosemary were killed in an attack as brutal as the night before. Unlike the Tate house, this was not a glamorous Hollywood mansion. It was an ordinary middle-class home, quietly tucked into a residential neighborhood. That difference mattered. Sharon Tate became a symbol. The LaBiancas quietly faded from public memory. The house itself never did. Unlike Cielo Drive, the LaBianca home still stands today. Over the years, owners have changed repeatedly, many leaving after only months. Residents have described sudden cold spots that seem to move through the house, especially in the living room and bedroom where the murders occurred. The sensation has been compared to walking through invisible ice water even during summer heat. More disturbing are reports of shadowy figures appearing in doorways or at the foot of beds, vanishing the moment they are confronted. Several owners claim to hear whispered conversations that abruptly stop when someone enters the room. Others reported waking in the middle of the night to the sound of scratching or writing eerily reminiscent of the messages the killers left behind. Animals appear to sense something as well. Dogs have reportedly refused to enter certain rooms, growling or freezing at thresholds with no visible cause. One former owner, who sold the house at a loss after 7 months, described a constant feeling of being observed as if the walls themselves were aware. Hollywood remembers Tate. Los Angeles remembers the LaBiancas. If a tragedy is never spoken about, never mythologized, does it fade more easily, or does it linger even longer, replaying itself in silence? 3. Pickfair. The Mary Pickford Estate. For decades, Pickfair was not just a home, it was the heart of Hollywood itself. Built in 1919 and spread across more than 50 acres in Beverly Hills, the estate belongs to Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks, the industry's first royal couple. World leaders, writers, scientists, and movie stars passed through its gates. At the height of the silent era, Pickfair symbolized power, influence, and immortality. But fame, even at that level, does not last forever. After Pickford's death in 1979, the mansion changed hands several times. In 1988, it was purchased by businessman Meshulam Riklis and his wife actress Pia Zadora. What happened next shocked preservationists. Large portions of the historic mansion were demolished. Officially, termites were blamed. Unofficially, something else was whispered. Zadora later claimed the house was genuinely haunted. Staff members reportedly quit after witnessing unexplained events. Footsteps echoed through empty corridors, doors slammed without warning. Music and laughter from the 1,920 seconds were said to drift through rooms late at night as if long-forgotten parties were still taking place. Most unsettling were repeated sightings of a woman in a flowing white dress believed to resemble Pickford herself, often seen on the staircase or near her former bedroom. The activity reportedly intensified whenever renovations were attempted, as though the presence was reacting to changes. A groundskeeper later remarked that Pickfair felt like a place that refused to accept erasure. Even after the original structure was largely replaced, visitors continued to describe cold spots, the faint scent of rose perfume and reflections that seemed to move on their own. Mary Pickford was one of the most powerful women Hollywood had ever known. She built Pickfair at the height of her fame. If being forgotten was her greatest fear, then perhaps the stories surrounding Pickfair are not about a ghost at all, but about a legacy that refuses to disappear. 4. The Harry Houdini Estate, Laurel Canyon. In 1919, legendary magician and escape artist Harry Houdini purchased a secluded estate in Laurel Canyon. The property became his private sanctuary, filled with hidden passages, secret rooms, and a deep water tank where he practiced dangerous underwater escapes. It was a place designed around control, locks, illusions, and the promise that Houdini could free himself from anything except death. Houdini died in 1,926 inches Detroit, officially from complications related to a ruptured appendix. But his connection to the Laurel Canyon estate did not end there. After his death, his widow, Bess Houdini, held annual seances at the property every Halloween for 10 consecutive years. Houdini, who had spent much of his life exposing fake spiritualists, had agreed on a secret after-death code that would prove his spirit was real if contact were ever made. The message never came, yet the seances continued. Later, owners of the estate reported a series of unsettling events. Locked doors would open on their own. Objects vanished from one room only to reappear elsewhere. Faucets turned on without explanation. Electrical equipment malfunctioned and batteries drained unusually fast. The disturbances seemed intelligent, almost deliberate, as if something was demonstrating control over the physical environment. Paranormal investigators have suggested that repeated attempts to breach the boundary between worlds may have left something behind. One investigator remarked that the phenomena felt less like random hauntings and more like a presence testing limits, opening what was sealed, escaping what was locked. The most chilling reports occur around Halloween, the anniversary of Houdini's death. Caretakers have described seeing a tall figure in early 20th century attire standing silently near the pool, vanishing when approached. During a seance conducted decades later, audio recordings allegedly captured a voice whispering, "Bess, I'm waiting." Houdini devoted his life to proving that spiritual deception was false. If these stories are true, the irony is unsettling. What happens when a door is knocked on too many times, especially by someone who never believed it should be opened at all? 5. The LaLaurie Mansion, New Orleans. Most haunted Hollywood properties sit in California. This one does not. Yet its connection to fame, fascination, and fear made it impossible to ignore. Built in 1,832 inches, New Orleans' French Quarter, the LaLaurie Mansion is infamous for the atrocities committed by socialite Delphine LaLaurie. Behind elegant walls and high society gatherings, enslaved people were imprisoned, tortured, and killed. Crimes, discovered only after a fire in 1834, exposed a hidden chamber of horror. This was not a ghost story. It was a crime scene. In 2007, actor Nicolas Cage purchased the mansion for millions, drawn by its dark reputation and historical weight. Cage had previously owned several properties rumored to be haunted, but this one was different. He spent very little time inside. Within a few years, the mansion was sold again, his ownership ending quietly and abruptly. Local workers, tour guides, and neighbors claimed the activity inside the house was among the most disturbing in the country. Chains rattling inside walls, blood-curdling screams echoing from empty rooms, tools disappearing during renovations only to reappear in different locations overnight. Several workers reported feeling hands touch them when no one was present, or waking suddenly with the sensation of being unable to breathe. Investigators who visited the mansion described something more unsettling than residual haunting. They claimed the energy felt active, aware. Electronic voice recordings allegedly captured whispers, cries for help, and anguished screams. Phantom smells were frequently reported, including smoke decay and something described as burning flesh, appearing suddenly before vanishing. Unlike other locations tied to celebrity tragedy, the LaLaurie Mansion carries the weight of prolonged suffering, inflicted deliberately and repeatedly. Some researchers believe this is why the atmosphere feels different, heavier, angrier, less willing to fade. Even today, people standing outside the mansion describe sudden nausea, dread, and disorientation. The building remains private, but its reputation endures. When a place is built on pain that was never answered, never forgiven, and never resolved, can it ever truly become a home again? 6. The Ozzie and Harriet Nelson House, Hollywood Hills. For millions of Americans in the 1,950 seconds and 1,960 seconds, the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet represented the ideal family. Warm, wholesome, and reassuring, the sitcom blurred the line between television and reality by starring the real-life Nelson family, often filmed inside their Hollywood Hills home. On screen, everything felt safe and perfectly controlled. After Ozzie Nelson's death in 1975, the house passed through several owners. Almost immediately, reports of strange activity began to surface, centered mainly around Ozzie's former office and bedroom. The most common complaint was the sound of a typewriter clacking late at night, despite no such machine remaining in the home. Other owners described hearing Harriet Nelson's voice humming softly in the kitchen or smelling pipe tobacco drifting through rooms where no one smoked. Some reported fleeting movement in hallways, as if figures were continuing familiar routines long after the family was gone. Later accounts grew more specific. Several residents claimed to see a woman resembling Harriet pacing the master bedroom at night, walking the same path repeatedly from the bed to the window, then to the closet. The motion felt calm, deliberate, and deeply unsettling, as though she were searching for something she could never find. The house's reputation is often linked to the family's real tragedy. Ricky Nelson, the beloved child star of the show, died young in a plane crash in 1985. Some investigators suggest the home reflects the pressure of maintaining a perfect image for decades, even as reality slowly unraveled. Several owners also reported an intense feeling of being watched, especially during family moments. Doors were said to open on their own during arguments, as if something unseen was trying to restore the harmony once performed for millions. If a family spends a lifetime performing happiness, what happens when the performance ends? 7. The George Reeves Home, Benedict Canyon. George Reeves was forever linked to Superman, but the role that made him famous slowly became a trap. In the 1,950 seconds, Reeves lived at a home on Benedict Canyon Drive, a quiet Hollywood Hills property meant to offer privacy and peace. Instead, it became the setting for one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. On the 16th of June, 1959, Reeves was found dead from a gunshot wound inside his bedroom. Authorities ruled the death a suicide, yet doubts surfaced almost immediately. The gun had no fingerprints. Witness accounts conflicted. Friends claimed Reeves had been optimistic about his future just days earlier. The case was closed, but questions never were. After his death, the house gained a reputation for unsettling activity. Residents described a persistent cold spot near the staircase, exactly where Reeves's body was discovered. No heating system adjustments ever explained it. Guests often refused to sleep in the bedroom, reporting the sensation of someone sitting on the edge of the bed late at night. The most disturbing reports involved mirrors. Multiple occupants claimed to see the reflection of a tall man wearing a Superman costume visible only in glass surfaces. When they turned around, nothing was there. Some said the figure appeared confused, watching silently, then vanishing. Footsteps were also commonly reported upstairs when no one else was home. On rare occasions, a loud single gunshot was allegedly heard in the middle of the night, followed by complete silence. Cleaning crews claimed dark stains appeared on the carpet only to fade when approached. Reeves reportedly despised being trapped by Superman, unable to escape the role. If a man dies still bound to an identity he never wanted, does that role ever release him, or does the story keep replaying, waiting for the truth to finally surface after decades of unanswered questions? 8. The Marilyn Monroe Brentwood home. Marilyn Monroe was the most recognizable face in the world, yet the home she bought in Brentwood was modest, private, and quiet. Located on 5th Helena Drive, it was the first house Marilyn ever owned entirely on her own, purchased only months before her death. She hoped it would finally give her peace. On the 5th of August 1962, Marilyn was found dead in her bedroom from what was officially ruled a probable barbiturate overdose. The case was quickly closed, but doubts and conspiracy theories have never disappeared. Friends described her as fragile yet determined, planning new projects and changes. Her story ended, but the questions did not. After her death, later residents and staff reported strange disturbances centered around her bedroom and bathroom. Lights and electronics allegedly turned on and off by themselves, often around 3 in the morning, the estimated time of her death. Sudden cold spots appeared without explanation, even during summer heat. Several witnesses claimed to see Marilyn's reflection in mirrors or windows, a pale blonde woman in a white robe, visible only for seconds before vanishing. Others described an overwhelming wave of sadness or anxiety upon entering the room, emotions that lifted the moment they left the house. One of the most persistent reports involves scent. Guests and workers have claimed the sudden smell of Chanel No. 5, Marilyn's signature perfume, drifting through empty rooms. At other times, a sharp medicinal odor was described, recalling the substances found in her system. Above the front door, Marilyn had installed a small plaque reading Cursum Perficio, Latin for "The journey ends here." Whether intention or coincidence, the phrase now feels haunting. If this was the only place Marilyn ever owned, did she finally find peace there, or was it simply the place where her unfinished story chose to stop? 9. Rudolph Valentino's Falcon Lair. Benedict Canyon. Rudolph Valentino rose to fame during the silent era as Hollywood's first true sex symbol. In 1925, he purchased a secluded Benedict Canyon estate known as Falcon Lair, a place meant to represent success, privacy, and control after years of public scrutiny. He lived there for only a short time. In August 1926, Valentino died suddenly at the age of 31 from complications following surgery. His death sparked mass hysteria. Fans fainted in the streets. Several reportedly took their own lives. Newspapers mocked his masculinity even in death, questioning his strength and identity. The star vanished, but the obsession did not. Soon after, Falcon Lair developed a reputation. Caretakers and later residents reported seeing a dark-haired man in 1922 attire standing silently on staircases or in doorways. He never spoke. He simply watched. When approached, the figure disappeared. Strangely, women reported the most frequent experiences. Several described feeling an unseen presence standing close behind them, accompanied by the scent of old cologne. Some claimed a gentle touch on the cheek or hand when no one else was present. Others heard tango music and distant laughter late at night, as if a party were continuing without guests. Another recurring detail involved Valentino's beloved Doberman. Footsteps were allegedly heard clicking across hardwood floors, followed by the sensation of something brushing against legs. No animal was ever found. Falcon Lair was later demolished, yet reports continued even after new structures were built. Investigators suggested the attachment was not to the house, but to the land itself. Valentino was adored, criticized, and consumed by his audience. If fame refuses to let go, does it ever allow its icons to rest, or do they remain where the applause once echoed, waiting to be seen again? Long after the lights dim, the memory still refuses silence. 10. The Paul Bern House, Beverly Hills. Paul Bern was one of MGM's most powerful producers during Hollywood's golden age. In 1932, only 2 months after marrying screen icon Jean Harlow Bern was found dead inside his Beverly Hills home from a gunshot wound to the head. Authorities ruled it a suicide, citing a note expressing shame and regret, yet almost nothing about the scene made sense to those who knew him. Within days, rumors spread. Friends questioned the lack of fingerprints on the gun. Others pointed to Bern's former relationship with actress Dorothy Millette, who died by suicide just 2 days later. The case was closed quickly, but suspicion never faded. Over the decades, the house became a magnet for tragedy. In the 1962nd, hairstylist Jay Sebring owned the property before being murdered alongside Sharon Tate in 1969. Another later owner reportedly drowned in the swimming pool. Each incident seemed to add another layer to the home's reputation. Subsequent owners reported unsettling experiences concentrated around the bedroom where Bern died. Sudden cold air blasts, whispered arguments, and objects moving overnight were commonly described. Several claimed to wake near 3 a.m. to the sensation of someone standing nearby, watching silently. Some investigators believe this house does not hold a single presence, but many overlapping echoes of unresolved lives. When pain accumulates instead of fading, does a place begin to remember for us, or is the house simply reflecting what Hollywood itself never resolved then chose to forget? In this house, time feels layered, not linear, as if every unanswered question remains present. When truth is buried repeatedly, does it disappear, or does it settle deeper, waiting for someone willing to look directly at what was never explained? Here the past does not rest, and silence becomes the final witness to everything that ended, without answers. Hollywood has always been skilled at creating endings. Careers fade, stories are rewritten, scandals are buried beneath new headlines and brighter faces. Officially, everything moves on. But these homes suggest something very different. They stand quietly in the background, holding what was never resolved, never spoken aloud, and never truly understood. Maybe these places are not haunted by spirits at all. Maybe they are haunted by memory, by pressure, by lives shaped by fame, cut short by violence, or trapped inside roles they could never escape. Walls absorb sound, but they also absorb history. And when too much pain is left unanswered, silence itself begins to feel alive. What makes these locations unsettling is not the idea of ghosts, but the realization that Hollywood often refuses closure. When a truth is inconvenient, it is sealed away. When a life ends at the wrong moment, the narrative is rushed to a conclusion. Yet something always remains pressing against the present, waiting to be acknowledged. So now we ask you, do you believe these homes are truly haunted, or are they simply echoes of human tragedy too heavy to disappear? Are these stories, warnings, metaphors, or something more? Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us which location disturbed you the most, and whether you believe places can remember what people choose to forget.